everybody, this is Dave Neabore, and it's an honor for me to be here on Splattered Plastic to answer 10 questions about my favorite subject, horror movies. So here we go. First horror film I ever saw was probably Jaws when it played on television. It scared the hell out of me, and I couldn't go in the water for many, many years because of that. And I can also remember seeing The Exorcist when it aired on television, even in an edited form. Just the sounds of The Exorcist scared me so badly that I had to hide behind a wall. I can also remember being left alone as a kid, and Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things came on, and that movie made a big impression on me. It really scared me, and I still watch it every Halloween. So my favorite decade for horror is very difficult to choose because I love so many movies from the 70s and I love so many movies from the 80s that it's just nearly an impossible decision to make. So I think, one day I may say the 70s and the next the 80s, but today I'm going to say the 80s just because I was really affected by so many movies in the early 80s and mid 80s, like everything from Maniac, The Shining, Reanimator, Nightmare on Elm Street, all the Friday the 13th. So it really is just a decade that I never get tired of. But the 70s really did have so many of the most important films and most of my top 10 of all time. But today I'm going to pick 80s. You really can't go wrong. There's just so much fun, so many cheesy movies, and so many great gore effects. So that's what I love. My favorite horror director is another tough question, but I'm gonna go with John Carpenter simply because Halloween was my favorite movie, and The Thing, The Fog, Escape from New York. He just made hit after hit of just great horror films. So I'm gonna go for John Carpenter, and after that I would put Dario Argento and probably. Lucio Fulci and Mario Bava, the Italian greats. And there's so many more. So many great people making horror movies, but we're going to go with John Carpenter as my number one. Suspense or gore? I've always been a gore hound, and so I'm going to say gore. When I was young, it was just a mission to find the bloodiest movies I can, see the uncut versions of everything. So I guess I'm really truly a gore hound at heart. Of course, suspense is very important to a great horror movie. Not discounting that, but bring on the gore. VHS, DVD, or Blu-ray. I love all those formats and Laserdisc. So these days I'm going to pick Blu-ray because it's just such a beautiful time as a collector to be able to see these great horror films, some well-known, some obscure, just being presented in beautiful, pristine transfers. I'm just loving the way these Blu-ray companies are just restoring these things, and Blu-ray is just an incredible format, and I don't plan on ever upgrading. I know a lot of people are already going to 4K. I gotta cut it off, and for me Blu-ray is absolutely fine. That's my format now. The best slasher film for me is definitely Halloween, the original Halloween. It's everything a slasher film should be. It's just perfect in every way. It's my favorite horror movie of all time. So that's an easy answer, but I really love all of the late 70s, early 80s slasher movies. I never get tired of them. Pick your holiday. I love them all and collect them all. So that's one of my reasons that I'm so into horror, was just the slasher movie cycle of the early 80s was what I grew up in, and I remember seeing the ads in the newspaper every week, and I was just fascinated by them. So Halloween wins. Best zombie movie? that's going to be Dawn of the Dead, George Romero's original classic zombie film. There's just so much good going on there, from the writing, the acting, the locations. Even though the zombies weren't the scariest zombies of all time, they it just the scope of the film, the, let's say, the messages of the movie, and the gore effects are just still some of the greatest ever put on film. So Dawn of the Dead's number one, and in Europe, Lucio Fulci's Zombie was released as the sequel to Dawn of the Dead, Zombie 2, even though it wasn't a direct sequel, just in title only. That would be my second favorite. Those two movies for me are just the top of the heap of zombie movies. Favorite monster, that is an easy one. Godzilla, King of the Monsters, my favorite monster movie of all time, favorite monster of all time. I have every Godzilla movie in my collection, and I watch them in constant rotation. So he's the king of the monsters. Godzilla wins every time. Favorite artist, I'm going to have to say Joe Coleman, who maybe hit the public eye in the early 90s when his artwork was featured on the poster for Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. He makes very intricate, detailed art, and I was really into him in the early 90s, and actually was able to see an exhibition of his work, and I was able to see it firsthand, and it was just mind-blowing. So he was definitely somebody that I really admired, and I highly recommend checking out his art. The last question, why horror? Why not? No. The real answer is I find horror to be the most fascinating of all the genres of movies, because you really never know what's going to happen. You put the movie in, and it just, anything can happen in a horror movie. So that's what I really like about it. They're unpredictable, they're fun, and they're, even though there's some movies that copy each other, everyone has its own charm to it. So I still get a thrill every time I put a horror movie in, wondering what it's going to be like. And horror just is the most exciting genre. We can get scared, we can laugh at it. I find that it provokes more emotion than any other type of movie. So I've been dedicated to horror my whole life, and I will continue to. It's what I love, and it's why I'm here. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for listening to my 10 questions. And I want to especially thank the guys from Splattered Plastic for having me on the show. And I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.